Okay, well, I'm down here invited by you guys. My name is Bob Carpenter. I was a first lieutenant in the Army Air Corps in World War II, and I had 3 years of enlistment. And I went through Air Cadets and became a flyer and flew P-38s and did 40 missions in Italy and got shot down on my 40th. And did a little time in the hospital in Budapest, Hungary, and later on German prison camps, and for a year until the war ended in Europe.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah.
What kind of prison camp were you in? We know that
well,
there are different ones.
I was in 3 different prison camps. And I was in well, I was in the hospital first for about 6 weeks. I had burns on my arms, neck, face. And then I was released from there and put into a penitentiary in Budapest, Hungary, where they interrogated me and tried to get me to tell them where I was from and how and why and so forth. And I was told that I give my name, rank, and serial number, and that's all I could tell them, and that I did. And I was there for 2 weeks, and they finally decided they couldn't do it. They made threats, and they decided they couldn't get anything out of me, so they let me go. And they decided that I was a prisoner of war and sent me up into Germany, into Stalag 3.
What kind of mission were you doing when you got shot down?
We escorted bombers up into Vienna, Austria. And just before we got there, we were attacked by a group of Me-109s and Me-210s. These are names of the fighters, German fighters. And we got into a little battle which doesn't take long. I mean, it's not like in the movies. It takes just a few minutes. And we were attacked by them, and what we saw, what happens in combat at that time, you could see up on these planes drawing contrails. And when the contrails disappeared, you knew that they were coming down. And what we did is we just waited until they got close enough, and then we dropped our belly tanks and we turned into them. And then the different stuff started, and I was coming down, and I saw my wingman 50 years later. He lived and went through the war. And I asked him, where did you go? Because he was supposed to protect me. And he said, the bullets were bouncing off my wing. You were waiting too long to turn into them. And so that's why he peeled off, and I was by myself. And on the way down, I saw an Me-210 go across, and I pulled over and shot, and I saw the bullets coming off of his canopy. And I felt I got him, but they used to yell timber, which meant if you heard the word timber, you immediately broke to the right or left because someone was on someone's tail somewhere in the vicinity. So I broke, but I see they gave me credit for that. That plane was destroyed. And then I went down into the deck and around, and I heard our leader, a major, call and say, assemble at such and such, we're going home. And as he said that, I saw an Me-109 go right across to my right, and I pulled over and was on his tail, and he started to climb, and I started to shoot, And bullets were, I saw a cannon shell explode in the cockpit of his plane. And I knew I had them, and I didn't wait to do anything. I broke off. And I got a sick feeling in my stomach that I had killed someone. And that's not a good feeling. And then I started home, and I came to Lake Balaton, and they always told us, you don't go across the lake because the other fighters can spot you from way up there. But I was 20 years old, and I knew everything. So I went across the lake. And just as I got across the lake, I smoked at the time. And was reaching down to get, and well, I looked around all over. I looked all back here and in the rear mirror and nothing. And I just reaching down to get the cigarettes out of my pocket down here, and the bullets came right through, right down this and right into the cockpit. And I broke to the right, and I felt like I was going to get some more. And as I've been going to the right, I looked over and I'm on fire. My whole arm is on fire. And what happened, the bullets hit behind me, and there's whatever was there, hydraulic fluid, went into fire. And I just immediately pulled up like this and started to go up, and it was all instinct. There was no thinking at all. I had to get out of that plane. And she started to go up, and I just popped the canopy before I took my safety belt off, and it pulled me up like this and held me into the wind. And I got my feet under me like this and popped the safety belt and went right over the top. And they always told us, well, here's that plane, that if you had to bail out, if you're at high altitude, you just roll down the thing and you get on the ling and you drop down. And because you don't want to hit this boom here. And I just went right over the top. And I don't know if I went under the boom or above the boom. All I know is I had to get out of the fire. And that was it. And I down, and these two planes, there were two ME-109s, and they turned around. When I got down, I started immediately to run into the woods. And as I was running into the woods, two planes pointed at me, and I thought they were going to shoot. And I jumped down on my elbow, and it hurt, and because of the burns. So I went back to get my first aid kit, which was off the parachute. I had pulled the parachute off. And as I'm doing that, these farmers from the area that came in, they had shotguns and about maybe 10 men. And I had a pistol, and I just took the pistol out and I turned it around and I said, here, you can have this. I wasn't going to do any fighting with a bunch of men with shotguns. And that was it. And that night they interrogated me, the couple of Nazi in the area that were Germans. And later on, I got a letter after the war from a lady who was helping them interrogate, and they told me that she told me she was a little worried for me because these Nazis were there and they didn't like the way I was talking about the Nazi government. And so they said, see, there's a lot of things at that time where, well, go ahead. I mean, do you have any questions? You get me started on these things. And
It's definitely, this is very,
they said that our president at the time was Roosevelt, and the Nazis, the party in Germany that ran things, Adolf Hitler, were killing the Jewish people, and they were indoctrinating the German people with that Jews were bad. Now I was an American, and I didn't believe that. And they said, the name is not Roosevelt, it's Rosenfeld, which is a Jewish name. And I said, well, I don't know if he's Jewish or not, but if he is, he's a great man, and he's the president of our country. And these Nazis really didn't like it. And she was worried for me that that I would talk openly against their regime, which I did. I defended America. And that was about it. And I stayed there a day, and then I was shipped up to a hospital in Budapest, where I spent about 6 weeks in the hospital.
What was it like in the hospital?
It was not bad. Not enough to eat. The people at that time didn't have enough to eat either. But all the time of the year, there was a lot of times I starved. But it wasn't bad in the hospital. They got good treatment.
Oh, sorry. You can go.
Pardon?
Did you meet any other POWs at the hospital? Was there any other people that were captured?
Well, when I got shot down, they'd just started bombing Budapest and in Vienna, and I was one of the first 3 in this hospital. Well, first of all, we got put into a insane asylum, and it was really bad. I mean, the beds were filled with lice and bed bugs and everything, and we got bombed out of that hospital. And so we went to another hospital, and then it started to grow, and by the time I left, there were 50 of us in a room about this size. We just start getting shot down, and we just, a bunch of GIs, and we just laughed and kidded and told jokes, and for the 6 weeks I was there. And then I got shipped out of there to this penitentiary for a couple weeks, and then later on the train ride up into Germany to a prison camp.
How did you make your way out of the POW camp? Was there a certain escape, or was it formed? Or?
Well, we had a general, American general, that had been shot down, and he didn't want any escapes. He says, no, don't even bother, because you can't get out. It's impossible. But the camp I was in was the Royal Air Force camp. And when I got to this camp, Stalag 3 is what it was. It was a showcase that the Germans used to show how nice they treat the prisoners. And it was in countries like from Sweden and Switzerland were not in the war. And the Red Cross, they allow them to come in and investigate to see how things were. And it was a well-organized camp. And when I got there, we used to get a Red Cross parcel a week, which was pretty good, not bad. and then later on, they were running out of parcels, and we got a half of a parcel a week, and things started to get kind of hungry. And we were there until January the 27th, 1944, when the Russian army was starting to come in from the east, and this was in Poland. They had made it Germany. The Germans took over Poland, but now it's back to Poland. It was in Sagan, Germany. And they came over with their loudspeaker that we're going to march out of here, and there was thousands, quite a few. I mean, maybe many as 3,000 officers in these different camps. And I was in the Royal Air Force camp, because when I get in there, they were coming down in Germany, about 300 a day were coming down alive out of the air. Not saying how many were killed. And so the camps were getting full. And so they then got not in the American camp, but in the British camp. And then we just got ready to whatever clothes we had. And it was all kinds of snow outside. And we went on a forced march for, I don't know, right now, probably a couple of weeks to go to a train station somewhere. I think 70 kilometers was what we marched in about 3 or 4 days in the snow. And then we got into a train there, and they then took us to Nuremberg, Germany, which was in the west, more or less, into Germany. And we were there for a couple of months, and there no food at all. I mean, we didn't get anything. I can remember with another guy walking around the camp to see if I could see a mouse or something I would jump at and try to catch him, because we were hungry, very, very hungry. And there were thousands in this camp again. And then the Americans started coming. This is getting near the end of the war. And so then another forced march, and this time they told us we were going to Moosburg, which is near Munich. And load up with anything you can. Well, by that time we didn't have any food, but we had cigarettes, and everybody smoked at that time. It was the thing to do, and Hollywood made sure we did. You watch some of these old Hollywood movies, you can see everybody smoking. And so we were like near the end on this march, about 3,000 people, and we had all the cigarettes you wanted and soap, and we took that with us. And we get into the German town, and we walking through, we just go right up to a house and ask them, haben Sie Ei, haben Sie Potato, haben Sie Kartoffel, which is, do you have any eggs, do you have any potatoes, I'll give you some cigarettes. And by the time we got there, they were all traded out. These German people were traded out because all the guys ahead of us had traded them out. So I talked with this friend of mine, and I said, let's get out of here. And so even though it was controlled by our general, the march, along with the soldiers, I mean, there was one of the guards that was walking alongside of us at one time, and he had his rifle in the backpack. And but he was an old man, 55, 60 years old. He's one of our guards. And I told him, I said, Mom, you carry your rifle. I mean, you know, it's not exactly like you see in the movies. Right. I said, let me carry your rifle for you. It's a little too heavy for you. So he gave me his rifle, and I carried it. And this is my guard. And so then we said, John and I, we decided, hey, let's get out of here. So we rolled into a ditch, and then everybody went by. And this was in April of 45. That's when the war ended, 45? Yeah, well, 44, 45. And we went about 10 kilometers to the west. We found another road. And we lived like kings for 2 weeks. We went to farms. When the farmer people had plenty to eat, we talked with them, and they gave us food, and we let us sleep in their barns, which was beautiful, just to sleep in a barn with pigs or cows or what. We were free for 2 weeks until we went through another town, and we met some GIs that had been beaten up by some Nazis. And we said, hey, we better get back into the camp. This is ridiculous. And we weren't going to go back because we hear this boom, 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 which was the American army is now coming south in Germany. And we're not going to get down there. We're going to get killed. I mean, let's go home alive. So the next day we got back on that road and we went into the camp. And 2 days later, it was a Sunday, and we were at Mass. I'm a Catholic, and we were at Mass, and all of a sudden you hear this, and the priest said, you guys better find shelter, Mass is over. And it was the American Army coming in. It was General Patton. And he didn't come in then, he came in a lot the next day. And that was it, and then we were free.
What was life like in the camps?
In the camps?
Yeah.
Well, you know, some of it was like that TV program. We had our own BBC, British Broadcasting, every day. The Germans didn't know it, but there was a clothesline at this one place, which was an aerial, and we would get the latest results of how the war was going. Someone would come in every day into the camp and read the results that they got on the BBC. And we played cards, and we dreamt of when this war is going to get over, and talked about just about everything. And played bridge, learned how to play bridge, and played cards, and then in this camp, the Stalag 3, the first one, that was the one that you could, you know, show everything.
Right.
We had an open field with baskets for basketball, and I'm shooting baskets out there one day, and a Canadian came up to me and said, listen, you got a lot of Americans in here now. Could you get up a basketball team? And I'm one of 5 guys that traveled the world from Canada. We were a professional basketball team, and we went to Japan and Australia and before the war, and played basketball and demonstrated it and so forth. Could you get some Americans together? And so I put up some notices, and before you know it, we got a team, and this was in the fall, and we practiced, and we played the Canadians, and the whole camp would come and just stand and, you know, one behind the other and try to watch us, and because there weren't any tears or anything like that. And we played about half a dozen games, and we did pretty good with them, and we won half and they won half, and that was fun. And we had all the equipment in the world for athletics, because people had sent it, and the Germans let us have it. And you just didn't escape, though, because there was the guards with the machine guns in the, you know, different places around with the barbed wire, and you had to run about 30 feet and then climb a fence about 10 feet high, and very seldom did anyone ever try it. But then it started getting a little cooler to play basketball, and the English came to me and said, "You're the guy that ran that basketball thing, aren't you?" "Yeah." "Okay, could you guys learn rugby and play us rugby?" And I said, "Well, I think so. I got a lot of Americans in here now." So I put up a sign, and I got some real good college football players. And a couple of them, I understand, were possibly going to be All-Americans if they had been able to stay and play football. So we learned the rugby game, and it was a tough game with the British. They knew it. I mean, it was a different type of. I mean, they would tackle kind of pulling down, you know. Well, we learned how to play their game, and we're playing it, and we didn't play long because these guys that I had were real good college football players. And when they hit, they didn't hit and drag down like the English even. They drove, and we broke a couple of British legs within a few minutes.
Sounds fun.
So we stopped. The guy came up and said, "Hey, Buck," he says, "Mr. Carpenter, you know, you guys don't know how to do this, you know. You're tackling too hard." And so we just quit.
Right.
And then you're asking how things were in the camp, so I'm telling you. And then it's nice and cold, and there's snow, and there's ice, and there's plenty of equipment to play hockey. And the Canadians came to me again. And at that time, 1944, 3, 4, Americans didn't play much hockey, but Canadians did, and they know the game. And he said, "Do you think you can get up a hockey team and play us?" So I put up the signs again. Before you know it, we got skates, and we're practicing, and then we come to play the first game. And within about 10 minutes, the score is 8-0 in favor of the Canadians against us. And I said, "Oh God, you guys," I was just doing the coaching. "You guys aren't good. I'm going to show you how to do it." And I went out there, and all of a sudden I got the puck, and I started going down, and all of a sudden these two Canadians coming, boom! They smashed me, and I went flying, and that was it. We quit.
So that was the better part of the camps.
Yeah.
That was definitely one of the more fun things in there.
It what?
To do sports.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was okay. I mean, not enough to eat after we got on half rations, you know. And then when we got to the Nuremberg camp, where we were there a couple of months, we got nothing to eat there. And I was 180 pounds when I was flying, and I went down to about 130. It's quite thin. And that's it.
I have a question. You said that you guys were in a group of fighters for the planes. What kind of plane did you fly?
It was a P-38 Lightning. It was a twin-engine fighter. There hadn't been anything like it before. They were all single engines.
Yeah.
But it was very maneuverable. And it was a great plane. It was nice to have two engines because you got one shot up. The other one could get you home.
And when you first had it, did everyone like in your area have one, or were you?
Yeah, we had our own planes.
Right.
Yeah.
But you said that you were in the air royalty camps.
The what?
You said that you were in one of the better camps where, isn't that what you said?
For 5 months out of the year, I was
Right.
in one, Stalag Luft 3, which was one of the... Stalag Luft 3 was the one where they made the movie The Great Escape, where after the war, and about 100 worked on this tunnel, and I don't know how many got out, but or about 100 got out, and I don't know, 150 worked on it until all of a sudden the Germans found it and stopped it, and these 100 went free, and then the Germans collected all of them except two that made it into a port somewhere and got into a boat to go to Sweden, and they got out. The rest they took to one place and collected them, and 50 they sent back to the camp, and then the other 50 by order of Adolf Hitler. Teach these people they can't escape from my camp. They took them out in a field and machine gunned them all, killed them. And that happened about 2 or 3 months before I got into the camp.
Okay, I thought for a while there, I thought that you said that you were in the camp when that was happening. And I was like,
No,
that's a little.
no.
Did you see anyone be killed?
Did I see anyone get killed?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The 21 that I went into combat with, 21 guys, we all went,
Right.
We left from Virginia, took a boat to North Africa, Casablanca, and we went across North Africa in a cattle car, and then they flew us up into Italy. I was the 15th to go down, and almost all of them except one were killed. They weren't, and one other one was captured. And then one got shot down after me, and then 5 finished out of 21. And of the 5 that finished out of 21, one, a guy named Carroll, came back to the States, and he flew into some high tension wires and got killed over here. And the guy that got shot down after me in a poker game, the night before I got shot down, I won something like $250, which was a lot of money at that time. And I lent him $50. And I always dreamt of the day that I'd meet him somewhere and find out he's a Texas oil billionaire, and he's going to pay me that $50 plus interest. But he got shot down a week after me. In fact, they just found his body about 2 or 3 years ago. The plane had gone into a bog, and he was there for 50 years.
And they identified his body after all that time?
Yeah, yeah.
Was he found in
Dog tag.
Oh, okay.
Right.
I was going to say, if he was found in like water, they wouldn't have found his fingerprints.
Yeah. No, he's just a skeleton, I imagine.
Yeah.
For flying, did you win any medals?
Yeah, I got the Distinguished Flying Cross for one mission where I destroyed 4 locomotives and 4 planes on the ground. And we were coming back from, it was Vienna again, and I looked down and I saw a whole line of trains. And I called to my buddies and said, there's some trains down there, and we went down. And I was the first one down. And I went back about 4 times and blew up 4 locomotives. And the last one, it wasn't blowing, and I got so close to it that it blew, and there was white smoke that went up, and I went through the white smoke, and all of a sudden there's a plane sitting on the ground in front of me, an airdrome, German airdrome. And I just pulled the trigger again, and that blew up. And I went back and did what I wasn't supposed to do. They always told us you only make 1 pass at an airdrome, and I made 6 passes. And I had bullet holes in 3 of them in my plane. And I destroyed 4 planes. And then I ran out of ammunition, and I called to Jack Jolly, was his name. I told him, Jack, there's an ME-210 in some corner. And I pulled back, and I watched him go in, and he went in on it, and all of a sudden he went upside down, and he got hit. And he went upside down, and 1 engine was out, and he was a good pilot. And he just rolled it back easy. and he started climbing, and he called him. He said, "Come take me home." And so then I flew over him like this, real fast, and I look up there, and there's a couple of enemy up top, but I just kept going like this, you know, hoping they didn't come down because I didn't have any ammunition left. And he'd hardly turn the plane. And I took him back, and we went across the Adriatic Sea, and he got back and landed, and he's one of the ones that finished his missions.
Did he get wounded when his engine was shot out?
No, he didn't get wounded, just the plane.
Did you ever destroy any of like your own planes, like get wrecked like that?
Did I what?
Like, did any of the planes that you were flying ever get wrecked and you had to get a new one?
Get what? I can hardly hear you.
Get wrecked? Like,
No, one mission I got some bullets in it. Another mission over Germany, over Munich, Germany, we took the bombers in, and then we stood out the outskirts and watched them. And we used to think, oh, gee, these poor guys, you know, all the flak going up, and you'd see a plane explode, and then you'd see another one just go down. I thought, gee, that took a lot of guts, and then to just sit there and do that, and these big bombers, you know. And all of a sudden, boom, someone down there just picked me out way over here and put a hole right through my ring. And that was the only 2 times that I got, you know, except the time I got shot down.
And you said that when they interrogated you, you were told by, when you were first told that you shouldn't have told them anything except basically...
Yeah, name, rank, and serial number.
Right.
Yeah.
And just no information?
No.
Did they do anything about that? Did they
No.
get angry?
No, they would ask, you know, where I was from, and I said, I'm sorry, I can't tell you. But, I just gave my name, rank, and serial number, and that was it. Then this 16-year-old girl who gave me first aid in this, when I was first shot down and being interrogated by this major, she remembered my name, rank, and serial number. And then, 50 years later, this girl became a freedom fighter for the Hungarians against the Germans. You don't know about this either, probably. But she had to get out of Hungary, and she escaped from Hungary and went into Austria and made it to the United States and went to college and became an engineer and was working for Hughes Aircraft in California and working as a interpreter for the Americans, helping Russian people do something, I don't know. Anyway, she was doing it in Arizona, and they were having some big show at this airfield, and she talked to them. Man said, how would they ever find out whatever happened to Lieutenant Robert S. Carpenter, 0755874, who was a prisoner in Hungary. I wonder if he ever lived. And before you knew it, they looked up the secretary for the 82nd Fighter Group and for P-38 flyers, and they called me and said, there's a girl that would like to meet you. And they flew us and my wife to Arizona, and flew this lady and her husband to Arizona and to this airfield, and we met and we became friends, and then later on we went to Hungary with her And she took us through all Budapest, and we went to where I shot down, met the people, and young fellow was 13 at the time. Now he was now 55 or 60, and he was so excited. He said he was on this hill and he could see me come, and he saw the two planes behind me, and they shot me down, and I jumped out of the plane. And he was so excited, and we had a great time. My plane died a beautiful death. It dove into a winery. Destroyed the winery.
So how many planes do you think you shot down?
I just shot down 2 in the air the last day. And then I had 5 in strafing, and about, I don't know, 4 or 5 locomotives. And that was it.
So what would you have to say your best experience inside the camps was?
Inside what?
Inside of the camps.
Oh, I don't know. Best experience in the camps. My best experiences, I don't think it was in the camps. One was in the hospital, and Hungarians had a way to make their beds. And I woke up one morning and I said, you know what? I'm going to make my bed the GI way. I didn't like making it when I was GI, but I'm going to make it a GI way. And I did. And the nurses kept coming in and saying, oh, you got to make the bed the way you can make. I had one good right arm, and the left arm was all bandaged, and I could make it. And they said, you have to make it. I'm not going to make it. I will just made the GI way. Just being ornery. And this went on for 10 or 15 minutes. They said, well, we're having inspection. The doctors are coming in the afternoon, and we did this and that. And I'm not going to do it until our ranking officer was a major, and he came over and says, Carpenter, you're causing a lot of problems. Make the bed their way. And I said, is that an order? And he said, yes. Okay. So now I went and I was making the bed, and I had a guard there, a young fellow, a German. Well, no, he was Hungarian, but he was in German uniform. And he walks around with a rifle all the time. And he came up and started to show me. I said, I know how to make the bed now. Get out of here. And he kept trying, and finally I blew my stack, and I grabbed the rifle out of his hand, and I threw the rifle on the bed. And with the one hand, I twisted him around by the seat of the pants, ran him right through the room with 50 guys, out the swinging doors, and I threw him down the stairs. And I just, in a fit of pique and mad, being embarrassed that I had to do this, and the major told me to do it. And that was one of my good moments. And he was quite a nice guy, because about a week later we went out to the courtyard, and he walked, and he had disappeared then. They didn't leave him in there. But all the nurses started calling me Chicago gangster, you big Chicago gangster. And I just laugh about it. And anyway, in the courtyard, I was sitting there with a bunch of my buddies, and he came along, and he opened a cigarette case and offered me a cigarette. And I took the case and passed it to all my buddies, and they all had a cigarette, and gave him the case back and thanked him. So he was a nice guy. But that's one of my better experiences.
What did you do after your camp was liberated? Like,
After it was liberated, we waited. General Patton came in. He only had, he always carried, he was a showman. I mean, he was a great general, but he was really, he loved himself very well. And he carried this big two pearl handle revolvers around, and why he did that, I don't know, but he was, I don't know, he was a Hollywood guy. Anyway, he stood up in the Jeep and walked around and said hello to everybody. And then we waited a couple of weeks, and they flew us to Lucky Strike, a camp in France, to go back to the States. And as we got there, they, the PA system says, in the United States, this is the #1 tune this week. And it was Don't Fence Me In, a song called Don't Fence Me In. And then we came back, and then we got 2 weeks in Miami, rest camp. 2 weeks or 2 months? 2 weeks, I don't remember. But then then they told us, give us more. You can do two things. You can stay in the service, get in this line on the left and get a jump in rank, or you can stay in get in this line and get out. And I got in that line and got out. Came home, went to college, and started my life all over again.
Did you ever like reunite with anyone that you met in the POW camp?
Oh yeah. I go to these reunions, but the guys that are there all came in after me, and all the guys that I was with, most of them got shot down or killed, So I still go because that's the 82nd Fighter Group thing. And then a close buddy that was in a different squadron but the same group, he just died this year. He lived over on the other side of the state. That's about it.
Is anybody else in your group besides your good friend still alive and goes to the reunions with you?
As far as I know, the 21 that I went to combat with, they're all gone. Yeah.
Jeremy, question?
They're all up in heaven.
When you were in the camps, did you know people from your group that were in the camps?
No.
So basically, you said that the first camp that you had been to was the best one, and after that they
Stalag 3. That was.
Afterwards, it was just worse ones, worse rations of food.
Yeah, no food. Yeah.
Matthew, any questions?
What was it like enlisting, and what process did you go to become an airman?
And when I enlisted?
Yeah.
Well, the war started, and I was young, and
Ask him if there's anything else you'd like to add.
it's a lot different now. The reality of things, of television and so forth. When I was young, your age, I mean, the movies are all great, and the hero always ended up a hero, and I've been indoctrinated like that. And when the war started, I just couldn't wait to go into this thing and be glory and so forth. And war is hell. I'm so far against this war that we're in now. I mean, we had no business going in. I mean, going to look for bin Laden, yes, in Afghanistan. But to go into another country, we in the United States had no reason to do that. I mean, a lot of these countries, there's a lot of bad people. And their politics are, if someone's against you, you kill them. A lot of the countries are like that. This is not like the United States. A lot of countries are like that. And these people that sit in the United Nations, a lot of them are like that. And we have no business to go into another country and start a war. I mean, that's my belief. That, we'll defend our country to death, yes, but no, I'm so against war.
Is there anything else you'd like to add about this? Your thoughts, your views on it?
No, I probably shouldn't. I probably shouldn't.